Thanks for joining me for this module, Project Stakeholder Management. In this module, I will cover the following topics: definition of a stakeholder, typical stakeholders, stakeholder management, stakeholder analysis, and the stakeholder register or a RACI matrix. A project is successful when it achieves its objectives and meets or exceeds the expectations of the stakeholders. But who are the stakeholders? Stakeholders are individuals who either care about or have a vested interest in your project. They are the people who are actively involved with the work of the project or have something to either gain or lose as a result of the project. When you manage a project, such as adding lanes to a highway, motorists are stakeholders who are positively affected. However, you negatively affect residents who live near the highway during your project, such as with construction noise, and after your project with far-reaching implications, such as increased traffic, noise, and pollution. In a project, there are both internal and external stakeholders. Internal stakeholders may include top management, project team members, your manager, peers, resource managers, and internal customers. External stakeholders may include external customers, government, contractors, and subcontractors, and suppliers. There are many types of stakeholders, and identifying all of them is very important. Top management may include the president of the company, vice presidents, directors, division managers, the corporate operating committee, and others. These people direct the strategy and development of the organization. The project team is made up of those people dedicated to the project or borrowed on a part-time basis. As the project manager, you need to provide leadership, direction, and above all, the support to team members as they go about accomplishing their tasks. Working closely with the team to solve problems can help you learn from the team and build rapport. Showing your support for the project team and for each member will help you get their support and cooperation. Because project managers are in the position of borrowing resources, other managers control their resources. So their relationships with people are especially important. If their relationship is good, they may be able to consistently acquire the best staff and the best equipment for their projects. If relationships aren't good, they may find themselves not being able to get good people or equipment needed to the project. Internal customers are individuals within the organization who are customers for projects that meet the needs of internal demands. The customer holds the power to accept or reject your work. Early in the relationship, the project manager will need to negotiate, clarify, and document project specifications and deliverables. After the project begins, the project manager must stay tuned to the customer's concerns and issues and keep the customer informed. External customers are the customers when projects could be marketed to outside customers. In the case of Ford Motor Company, for example, the external customers would be the buyers of the automobiles. Also, if you are managing a project at your company for Ford Motor Company, they will be your external customer. Government. Project managers working in certain heavily regulated environments, such as pharmaceuticals, banking, or military industries, will have to deal with government regulators and departments. These can include all or some levels of government, from municipal, provincial, federal, to international. Contractors and subcontractors and suppliers. There are times when organizations don't have the expertise or resources available in-house, and work is farmed out to contractors or subcontractors. This can be a construction management foreman, a network consultant, an electrician, carpenter, architect, or anyone who is not an employee of the company. Depending on the project, managing a contractor and supplier relationships can consume more than half of the project manager's time. It is not purely intuitive. It involves a sophisticated skill that includes managing conflicts, negotiating, and other interpersonal skills. Another important stakeholder is the project sponsor. The project sponsor, generally an executive in the organization with the authority to assign resources and enforce decisions regarding the project, is a key stakeholder. This person, or could be a group, is responsible for enabling success. They may be inside the company, but sometimes they can also be outside the project. They are there to sign off on the project that it's complete, and the project manager has to make sure that they satisfy the project sponsor's needs. The person responsible for escalating issues that are beyond the control of the project manager typically is the project sponsor. Project sponsor also has a significant role in developing the initial charter and project plan. Many times, project stakeholders have conflicting interests. It's the project manager's responsibility to understand these conflicts and try to resolve them. It's also the project manager's responsibility to manage stakeholder expectations. Be certain to identify and meet with all key stakeholders early in the project to understand all their needs and constraints. Project managers are somewhat like politicians. Typically, they are not inherently powerful or capable of imposing their will directly on coworkers, subcontractors, and suppliers. Although, like politicians, if they are to get their way, they must exercise influence effectively over others. On projects, project managers have direct control over very few things. Therefore, their ability to influence others to be a good politician may be very important. When project stakeholders do not share a common culture, project management must adapt to its organizations and work processes to cope with cultural differences. The following are three major aspects of cultural differences that can affect a project: communications, negotiations, and decision making. Communication is perhaps the most visible manifestation of culture. Project managers encounter cultural differences in communication, in language, context, and candor. Language is clearly the greatest barrier to communication. When project stakeholders do not share the same language, communication slows down and is often filtered to share only information that is deemed critical. Relationship building. Taking the time to identify all stakeholders before starting a new project is the first step in understanding a relation is building relationships. Then, begin the process of building strong relationships with each one using the following method. Analyze stakeholders. Conduct a stakeholder analysis or an assessment of a project's key participants and how the project will affect their problems and needs. Identify their individual characteristics and interests. Find out what motivates them as well as what provokes them. Define roles and level of participation and determine if there are conflicts of interest among groups of stakeholders. Assess the environment. Identify all the relevant stakeholders because any of these stakeholders could derail the project. You need to consider their particular interest in the project. Identify goals. After determining who the stakeholders are, identify their goals. What are the goals of the stakeholders who hold the power? What are their desires of each of the stakeholders? Define the problem. The facts that constitute the problem should be isolated and closely examined. Keep stakeholders involved. Don't just report to stakeholders, ask for their input. Get to know them better by scheduling time for coffee, lunch, or quick meetings. Measure each stakeholder's capacity to participate and honor time constraints. Keep stakeholders informed. Send regular status updates. Daily may be too much. Monthly is not enough. One update per week is usually about right. Hold project meetings as required, but don't let too much time pass between meetings. Be sure to answer stakeholders' questions and emails promptly. Regular communication is always appreciated. and may even soften the blow when you have bad news to share. These are the basics of building strong stakeholder relationships. But as in any relationship, there are subtleties that every successful project manager understands, such as learning the differences between and relating well to different types of stakeholders. Achieving a project's objectives takes a focused, well-organized project manager who can engage with a committed team and gain the support of all stakeholders. Building strong, trusting relationships with interested parties from the start can make the difference between project success and failure. A key component to a successful project is the early establishment of expectations for each stakeholder. A racing matrix is a document that establishes who is responsible for each assignment, their accountability to the decision, what level of decision they need to be consulted, and how informed they need to be for a decision to take place. This is an example of a racing matrix for a large-scale project. Notice that each project participant has varying levels of responsibility, R, accountability, A, correspondence, C, and being informed, I. In this example, the project sponsor would be the primary stakeholder. They are typically more involved at the beginning of the project. Notice the accountability under initiation, and then are informed during the commencement of the work. So the initiation is mostly A's, and then as the planning begins, the project sponsor only needs to be informed. No matter what their needs or wants, all stakeholders will respect the project manager who is always honest, even when telling them something they didn't want to hear, takes ownership of the project, is predictable and reliable, stands by their decisions, and takes accountability for mistakes. In summary of this module, stakeholders are people, groups, or organizations that could impact or be impacted by the project. Managing stakeholders is a key success factor for projects. Analyzing stakeholder interests and level of influence is a key part of the stakeholder management process. Building coalitions and also communicating with stakeholders based on their needs are also key parts of this process. And if there's any questions, we will discuss them in class. So this is a case study called the Riverside Bridge Project. Background. The Riverside Bridge Project was a critical infrastructure development initiative aimed at constructing a vital bridge connecting two major cities, Cityville and Townsburg, separated by a wide river. The project was initiated due to increasing traffic congestion and the need for improved connectivity between the two cities. The key stakeholders. Cityville Municipal Government. This is a local government of Cityville, initiated the project to improve transportation and foster economic growth. Townsburg Municipal Government. The neighboring town of Townsburg was a key stakeholder, as the bridge was expected to boost trade and travel between the two municipalities. There's a project manager, Emily Johnson. Emily was a highly experienced project manager with a track record of successful bridge construction projects. She was hired by the Cityville Municipal Government to lead the Riverside Bridge project. The contractor, Bridge Builders Inc., BBI. BBI was a reputable construction company with extensive experience in building bridges. They award the contract for the Riverside Bridge project through a competitive bidding process. The subcontractor, Riverstone Piling Services. Riverstone Piling Services, or RSPS, was responsible for the foundation work, including a pile drive and ensuring the bridge's stability. They were hired by BBI as a subcontractor for this specialized task. For this case study, I'd like us to develop a racing matrix for the initiation phase of the project. The initiation phase of a project is the first and crucial stage in the project management process. It involves the initial planning and preparation activities that set the project in motion. During this phase, the project's purpose, objectives, feasibility, and overall scope are defined and documented.